Charlotte was born in Nicosia, the largest city on the island of Cyprus, on June 28, 1444. This island is located east of the eastern Mediterranean Sea, in the Levant, and is a strategic place where cultures and influences from Greece, Anatolia, and the Levant converge, as it is at the crossroads between Africa, Asia, and Europe. Today it is divided by a border wall between Greeks and Turks. However, since the end of the 12th century, in 1197, this island territory was ruled by the Lusignan family, a Franco-Latin elite from the French province of Poitou, whose dynasty led to its cultural flourishing, although since then the island has been the object of greed, and the rule of Charlotte was not without family intrigues and challenges for power. Queen Charlotte was the eldest daughter of Helena Palaiologina and John II of Cyprus, King of Cyprus, and titular Prince of Antioch. Her younger sister Cleopatra died in June 1448. As her father died in 1458 and she was the only surviving daughter, she inherited the throne at the young age of 14. This despite the fact that she had an illegitimate half-brother named James II, who had John II and his mistress, Marietta de Patras. Helena, her mother, taught her Greek, and she was raised following the precepts of the Byzantine tradition. Later, when she met Pope Pius II, she received from him the nickname Greek Torrent, for besides being his main language, she was also fluent in Italian, French, and Latin. In 1456, when she was only 12 years old, she became the titular Princess of Antioch and married Duke John of Coimbra, son of Peter of Portugal, and Isabella of Urgell, also nephew of the King of Portugal, who also died of poisoning in 1457, apparently by Charlotte's mother, that is, his mother-in-law. Charlotte of Cyprus, or of Lusignan, was crowned queen on the Cypriot throne and titular queen of Jerusalem and Armenia in the Cathedral of St. Sophia on October 7, 1458, when she was 14 years old. However, her rule was weak, as she was always challenged by the influence of her half-brother, James II, who in 1459 had taken refuge in Egypt, at the court of Sultan Saif al-Din Inal. To prevent James from acceding to the throne, the Genoese arranged a new strategic marriage for him, this time with his first cousin, the Count of Geneva, Louis of Cyprus, on October 7, 1459. Louis was a descendant of the kings James I of Cyprus and Janus of Cyprus, so the idea was that the crown would remain in the hands of that lineage. However, James II continued to be an obstacle for Charlotte. In Egypt, he became entangled in intrigues and was expelled from the court by the Sultan, although the Sultan still helped him to disembark with a detachment of Mamluks in 1460, with which he managed to take the cities of Nicosia and Famagusta. Charlotte received help from the Sovereign Order of Rhodes to take refuge. Thus it was that Jacopo took power of the island and imprisoned Charlotte, Louis, and their loyal barons in the castle of Kyrenia for 3 years. Finally, in 1463, the Queen managed to flee, first to Rhodes and then to Rome on October 14, 1461. Louis of Cyprus rejoined her in 1463, and it was then, with the fall of Kyrenia, that James II was crowned de facto king. So Charlotte's reign lasted only 6 years, from 1458 to 1460 while in Cyprus, and then to 1464 during her exile in Rome, with all the complications that this entailed, as James II was ruling the island and had forced her to abandon the throne by coercion. There, her constant aim was to regain the throne. She lost her kingdom, but not the title, although she could not exercise some of the administrative tasks she had in Cyprus, such as minting the coinage and collecting taxes. Moreover, despite the condition of ruling without being in the kingdom, Carlotta and her husband were always in elite and powerful circles. They lived in the Trastevere district, in the Palazzo dei Convertendi. In July 1464, Louis and Charlotte had Hugo, their only biological son, who died a month after the birth. But she had also adopted Alonso de Aragon, illegitimate son of King Ferdinand II of Naples, with his mistress Aldonza Ruiz de Evora. In turn, Alonso was married to the illegitimate daughter of his half-brother James II, Charlotte of Lusignan. Charlotte intended that the continuation of the dynasty was through her niece, and although she was about to achieve it with the approval of the Egyptian Sultan Al-Asraf Khalil, who was also going to support her for a possible return to the Cypriot kingdom, the Sultan's condition was that Charlotte should have the custody of her young niece, but this was not possible because the opponents imprisoned Charlotte in Padua and finally died in 1480 at the age of 11. When Charlotte lived in Convertendi, she became acquainted with Pope Pius II, who appreciated her intellectual qualities and manners. He even invited her to a public audience, thus emphasizing her royal and legitimate title. Meanwhile, her husband and her brother-in-law, Amadeus IX, Duke of Savoy, plotted an unsuccessful military attack against James II with the help of the papacy. Years later, Charlotte created a small court on the Greek island of Rhodes, from where she sought to dethrone her half-brother's wife, the young Italian noblewoman Caterina Cornaro, who served from Italy as regent for her own son when her husband died in July 1473. That project was also unsuccessful. Then there was another failed attempt to regain the crown when a marriage between Alonso de Aragon and the widow Caterina Cornaro was proposed, but the Republic of Venice intervened and the plan failed. Pope Sixtus IV invited her to the Vatican Palace in November 1483. Carlotta's legitimacy was increasing thanks to her ties with the papacy, and by that time in the meeting with the pontiff, such legitimacy was enough for her to be seated in a chair at the same height as him. In that year she was living in the house where Queen Catherine of Bosnia had also lived, in Piazza Scossacavalli, Borgo. In 1485, about February, in exchange for an annual pension of 4,300 florins, Charlotte agreed to cede her monarchical rights to the son of her cousin Yolande of Valois, the 17-year-old Charles I, Duke of Savoy, next in the legitimate line of succession, thus becoming titular king of Cyprus and Jerusalem. This agreement was validated by Pope Innocent VIII. In addition to Pius II and Sixtus IV, Charlotte remained in close relationship with Pope Innocent VIII. The latter paid for her funeral when she died in Rome at the age of 43 on July 16, 1487, and had her buried in the chapel of St. Andrew and St. Gregory under the high altar in St. Peter's Basilica. She is one of 4 women buried in the Vatican. Even her tomb bears the royal title she always retained. For although she lived in exile for 23 years, she never lost the sovereign recognition of other rulers. Don't close the video yet. If you like everything related to the medieval period, this is your site. If you found this video interesting and would like to see more videos, subscribe, leave us a like and write in the comments what other battle or character you would like to see in the channel. This will help us to grow and keep creating much more content. Now, with nothing more to say, we say goodbye.